Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of LinkedIn Office Hours. I'm Robbie Kelman-Baxter, your happy host. This series features some of my favorite LinkedIn learning instructors going beyond the courses to talk about key skills required to survive and thrive in today's crazy world. Please say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Let us know who you're rooting for in the upcoming football match. And just wondering, anybody here from France or Argentina? Also, feel free to share any questions or comments in the chat. Chris and I will try to get to as many of those as we can. Let me then go ahead and welcome today's guest, Chris Croft. Chris and I are going to be talking about all things customer today: customer success, customer service, customer support, service mastery, how those roles differ, what skills are required, and how organizations should be thinking about this incredibly important but often neglected area of business. A little bit about Chris. Chris has developed over 30 courses for LinkedIn Learning. Yes, that's 30, crazy numbers, a sign of his massive popularity on the platform. He's a real pro. In addition to his courses on customer service mastery, he teaches project management, time management, negotiation skills, presentation skills, pretty much everything you need to be successful on the job. He's a co-founder of the World Happiness Project, and we're going to talk about that, along with Jerry Clark, and together they have a TV series all about happiness, something important all year round, but especially at the holiday time. He's one of the world's leading trainers, and whether you work in a large organization, a small organization, or you're a solopreneur like I am, I think we're all going to find great value in today's session. So with that, I want to welcome our guest, Chris Croft. Welcome, Chris.
Oh, thank you, Robbie. That was quite a build-up. But yeah, mostly true. Some of it I made up and you must have got from my website, but mostly true. Yeah, all those LinkedIn learning courses, that is true. I've done that.
Yeah, and the theme of this series of office hours, which I started, I think, in September of this year and running through the spring of next year, is to bring some of these awesome LinkedIn learning instructors into a more casual format so people can ask questions and so that you have a chance as an instructor to share some of your, behind the scenes and emerging ideas.
No, it's great, isn't it, to have these chats? And I love it when people ask questions in the chat as well, because obviously there are some things I want to try to fit into this conversation, stuff I want to say, but I like to just see what people put. One person's put anybody except for England to win the World Cup. I can't believe she's put that. But anyway, England are out. France and Argentina. It's been exciting. It's been a great tournament, and actually great to see the African teams doing so well this time around. They've been Morocco, for example, were fantastic.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah,
we've had some exciting matches and some big surprises. I think I'd quite like to see Lionel Messi hold the cup up, but it's very rare for an England person to support Argentina because football-wise, we've had lots of matches.
What choice do you have in this particular matchup?
Well, France have got a brilliant team though, and I love watching them play. I love watching Mbappe, for example. So, so what do you do? But Messi, he's just special, isn't he? He's such a god. So I think for him alone, I think. But if France win, England can claim to be the second best team because we narrowly lost to France. So anyway, enough football. We must talk about customer service.
I love it. I see this, people talking, eagerly waiting for the Africa team to win. People agree. You're saying there's a Green Bay Packers, different kind of football fan, which I love.
The US are getting really quite good at soccer now, and and I think a few more years and the US could win it.
Yeah. From your mouth to God's ears, as my grandmother used to say. Okay, so let's talk. People didn't come to hear us talk about sports. They came to hear us talk about customer service and customer success. But before we even get there, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about yourself and how you came to create so many different courses for LinkedIn Learning.
Um, oh, well, the first one I did was project management. They found me because I made a project management wrap, which I suppose is an example of customer delight in a way, because I just thought it would be fun to make a wrap. The chorus is
Like a
make
rap
plan.
song.
Yeah, it goes make a plan before you start. Always have a Gantt chart and things like that. Break it
Make a
down, break
plan.
it down. And I did it. A friend of mine is a rapper, and we just, for a laugh, we made a project management wrap, and it's sort of quite good, but also it's pretty sad, but it's funny. And I just think being different is part of delighting your customers and giving them a bit more than they're expecting. So if you're a trainer and you've got a wrap as well, I mean, it's just an extra thing, isn't it? And being yourself and being a bit fun, because I think being fun is also part of customer delight. So
Yeah.
just now, for example, I had to get my dog out of this office of mine here because my dog was asleep next to me where she likes to sit. And I thought, she's going to suddenly bark halfway through this. So I woke her up and shoved her out of the office. But then I was thinking, is it good customer service to be really professional, no dog disturbing the talk? Or is it good customer service to be a bit quirky and a bit friendly and to have a dog who might bark, but that's okay because it's me? And customer service is such a tricky area, isn't it? Because it's somehow that mixture between professional and friendly and trying to be both. And I think actually one of the reasons why people have liked my courses, and LinkedIn keep letting me do another one, is because my courses are quite friendly. I'm probably not as professional as some people, but I think I come over as just me, because I am just me. I can't help it, really.
Well, let's talk about professional. Professional is a word, I think, like the word polite, which I'm trying to teach my children, which is, I think can be misused. Like professional, sometimes I think sometimes people equate professional with formal, unfriendly. What else?
Yes.
Please feel free in the chat, whatever else you associate with when somebody says be more professional,
almost boring, possibly.
And boring. But really for me, and I'd love to hear what you think, Chris, professional means that you come to work ready to get the work done, prepared to, get, move the work forward. And if you're in customer service, what that means is when somebody has a problem or you're trying to help a customer, that you do your best to do that and that you have the right skills and the right attitude to do that. Whether or not there's a dog in the room, unless the dog is distracting you and making it impossible for you to do your job, the dog is, it could be a neutral, could be a plus, right? I think they're different things. And
so you think you can be professional and friendly?
I think you should be. I think in many jobs, being friendly actually allows you to be more effective at getting your job done.
I totally agree. But I do think there are lots of people who are very professional, but not friendly. Like the police, every time they pull me over, they're usually very professional, but not very friendly. And then you get people who are friendly, but not professional. So, for example, I stayed in a hotel once and they were really nice and really friendly. And there were quite a lot of flies in my hotel room. And they were mostly on the window, but it usually means that something has died under the floor or whatever. And so I went down to the desk and I said, look, I'm in room number 3 and there's quite a lot of flies in there. And the woman went, oh, I know. They're awful, aren't they? Yeah. She said, last week there was loads of them. They were even in the bed.
Wow. Wow. We're just two people who don't like flies and aren't going to do anything about it.
They were in the bed as well, she said. And I just thought, not professional. She should have said, oh, that's terrible. I'll get someone to look at it straight away. Would you like to move rooms? Or don't tell me they were there last week and they're still there.
Right.
So she was friendly, but not professional. But if you can be friendly and professional, that's it. I mean, that is customer service, really, I think. And I think maybe another aspect of professionalism is making the customer feel important, feeling valued. And, so if you're waiting to be served in a shop and the 2 assistants are chatting to each other, for example, and ignoring you, it's really annoying because they're basically saying you're not important. And almost all, even if you ring up and nobody answers the phone for, you're waiting as the phone rings, that's sending you a message that you're not important. Or if there's a queue of 100 people and it says you're number 83, we will answer your call in 45 minutes. Your call is important to
Your call is
us.
so important to us that we're going to make you wait for
Yeah.
half an hour and
they're
listen to
basically saying,
music.
you're not worth us paying for a couple more people to answer the phones, because we don't really care about customers, including you, and therefore you'll have to wait. And I think we're very sensitive to, am I important? Or, when you're at a bar hoping to get served and you keep going, excuse me, and they keep ignoring you, it's horrible because you feel unimportant.
Yeah.
And I think we're obsessed with that, aren't we? And I think that's all customer service is making the customers feel important. So if they remember you, then you feel really important.
Well, I'm gonna disagree just a little bit on that one, because I think they can make you feel important. Like, oh, Mr. Croft, your room with all the flies, I wish there was something we could do because you're such an important person and you're so brilliant and you have 30 courses on LinkedIn Learning and I love them. You're the best instructor I've ever seen. And I wish there was something I could do, but actually I'm going to eat a cookie right now and sit here at the front desk.
Yeah.
So I do think, I think
that's saying I'm important, but that's not actually doing anything to prove I'm important.
I think it's really about that. It's about the doing something. It's about being capable, having the right skills and training to do a good job. And, I wonder, you gave this great example of, excuse me, can I get a drink? Excuse me. There's reactive customer service or customer support, which is when nobody is taking care of you and you don't feel taken care of, and you as the customer have to go to the customer oriented person and say, can you help me? Because there's flies in my room. My drink is empty. My product broke and I can't figure out how to make it work. Very reactive kind of customer service. And one of the things that, today we're talking about where kind of the future of customer care is going. I think one of the things that's happening is a move towards the customer care person being proactive rather than reactive. So instead of waiting for the call, instead of waiting for the hand wave, instead of waiting to see the flies, it's checking the room before the guest comes and saying, this room is disgusting. I'm not going to let anyone stay there. Yep. It's noticing when someone's glass is half full and saying, can I get you another one? Or even better yet, refilling it. Yep. What do you think about that? That kind of proactive, reactive?
Totally. And I think that's a management job. So, I travel around doing talks quite often. I don't really talk to hundreds of people in a big, although I do sometimes, but mostly I do small group stuff. So I turn up to spend a day with like 20 people, and I pretty much always use a flip chart. And sometimes I get there and there's no paper on the flip chart, or there's paper, but there's sort of one dried up yellow pen. And I always bring my own pens because I don't trust the venues. But I always think if you were hiring out a room to 20 people and charging them quite a lot, wouldn't you just make sure there was a pen of each color, a red, blue, yellow, and green pen, and some paper? And you could rely on the person who sets the room up to sort of remember that. But I wouldn't. I'd have a checklist. I'd have a process. These things must always be there.
Checklists for the win. Everybody should have checklists for everything that they do on a repeated basis.
And it's just management. And then if somebody complains and says, excuse me, there's no pens, they should think, oh, we need to add that to the checklist so it'll never happen again. And so management are really key to all of this, because they've got to somehow have a process for everything. And I watched a really interesting program a while ago, and it was about a hotel, or a smart hotel. And they'd got a system, and they'd identified 130 ways to fail. So it'd be things like room too hot, room too cold, no toilet paper, it's flies, everything. And they had this checklist, and they made sure that none of those 130 things could happen. They always replace the toilet roll, even if it's half used or whatever it was. And I was thinking that's pretty tough, isn't it? To have to remember or have a process for 130 things. And what's really unfair in a way is that if 129 are okay, the room's the right temperature, there's no flies, but there's no toilet paper, I'm going to be unhappy, especially if I only realize too late there isn't any paper. So the thing is, I don't go, oh, the room was really good, there was no flies, and and you don't notice if the temperature's the right temperature, and if there's no noise outside, you don't notice. So you can only lose with the basics. And so you have to have a really good watertight system that every basic is done. And when you first do the list, it's quite difficult. You're probably going to forget something like toilet paper, but then you only need one complaint and then you add it to your list. And it's not long
Right.
until you've got everything on
Right.
your list.
This is an aha thing. I think that's really important, is that whether you're ideally management should be doing this, but if you're in customer support, customer service, customer success, and you don't have a checklist like this, 130 ways to fail, or things to check on, start making one with your colleagues. And every time,
Yeah.
a great way to build a list is every time someone complains, add it to the list.
Yeah.
Right. And
So it never
is there
happens again.
something we can do so that it never happens again? And I just want to share a couple of points. This great comment from Nikki. I hate bad customer service more than anything else. That's why I will go over and above for clients, especially after sales. People always forget about after sales. And I'm
Yes, once you've
curious.
sold it, you've got them, haven't you? You've got their money, so they can get stuffed. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my world, as subscription businesses and software as a service, SaaS, any of the as a service products have this issue, which is after sales aren't really after sales, they're ongoing sales. So if you don't do what Nikki does so well and take care of your customer after the moment of the transaction, they're going to cancel their subscription.
Yeah, they'll
So
drop off.
it's becoming more and more important, I think, to take care of the customer after they've rolled the car off the showroom floor, or already paid the non-refundable fee for the airline ticket.
Don't start me on BMW. Although I'd like to put a positive shout out to Buffer, because I use Buffer to post on LinkedIn. Well, half the time. So I have regular Buffer posts, but I can't resist posting in between as well. Whenever I think of something, I stick it on LinkedIn. But Buffer are completely brilliant. I've had various questions and problems and things, and they always get back, and they're so helpful. And that means not only have I stayed with Buffer, and I've upgraded to the one where you pay a little bit, because if you want to have more than 10 things in your Buffer, you have to pay a small amount. So I've upgraded, but also I've recommended it to other people. And what's the easiest way to get more work is to be repeated, is to be recommended to other people. So I think that delight factor not only keeps regular customers coming back, but it means they recommend you to other people as well. And if you get all the basics right, so your hotel room has toilet paper and no flies, you're probably not going to recommend it to other people. Oh my God, I stayed in this hotel and they had toilet paper and there were no flies. They won't recommend that. But if there's a chocolate on the pillow, then they probably will say, I stayed at this hotel, it was really great. Or there's one where they give you a cookie when you sign in, isn't there? An American chain of hotels.
Like a Holiday Inn or something.
Yeah, one of them. I can't remember which one it is now, but when you arrive, they've always got nice warm homemade cookies on the counter. And it's only a small thing, but it's much better than being ignored, like most hotels do when you arrive.
Yeah. So let's tease some of this apart, because I think this is really interesting. First of all, the delight, as you've pointed out a couple of times, it has to come after the basics are met. You've got that list of 130 things. Do that before you give the cookie, right? Sorry about the flies in your room. Here's a cookie. Doesn't cover it. Doesn't cut it. But it's a really interesting thing. You brought up Buffer, great company, not a very big company, right? This is more of a startup growth stage business. And something that I've noticed is that a lot of times, I'm in Silicon Valley in Northern California, lots of startups. Often they have amazing customer service. And the reason is that often the leadership team is actually on the phone, and the person doing customer service is the head of the nascent customer service, customer success team. And one of the challenges that arises is they get to a certain size and they start hiring people who don't own the company, who don't make huge salaries, and they expect them to have that same level of enthusiasm for every customer, even if the customer isn't that nice, even if the request doesn't seem that reasonable. So how do you motivate and train your team? Because I see some of the people on here are managers. How do you motivate and inspire and train your team so that they give the kind of service that you got at Buffer?
It's really difficult, isn't it? As companies get bigger, it gets harder and harder. I think management's really important in all of this. And because I think a lot of employees either don't think about customer service, or they think they're good at it when they're not. And if you only had a video you could show them of, this is you talking to a customer earlier on. I know you can do that with telephone places. They record calls, don't they, for training purposes. But I think it's a management job, and I think the first thing is it starts with recruitment. and you should recruit, the best technical person you can, but also you should be looking for customer orientation. So you want both. So, and I think this is in everything. So if let's say somebody who writes the code for a website, you might think, well, he or she is never going to actually meet a customer. So we can just get someone who's totally miserable as long as they're good with the code. But I don't agree, because they almost certainly at some point will end up talking to a customer, or they're giving a service to somebody else internally who's giving a service to a customer. It will affect the customer, because everything you do affects customers. Otherwise, why are you doing it? So I think the first thing is I'd recruit people who are customer focused. Now, I don't know how exactly you define or measure customer focus, but in an interview, they've got to have a little bit of warmth. They've got to be interested in other people, and there's got to be some empathy between you and them. I mean, they've got to be warm and fuzzy rather than cold and prickly, basically. And I think that's important in every, and then once you've recruited them, it should be constantly talked about as something that matters. So, in your team meeting, you should say, how can we improve service this week? And measure it. We're going to get onto measurement, I expect, aren't we? You should say, these are the numbers this week. And it should be an obsession that management constantly talk about. And by the way, most managers never do. So most managers, it's always about how much we sold, what are the costs. People very rarely measure or talk about service. It's an amazing hole in management, a great neglected hole.
Yeah. Why doesn't customer care get more love?
Well, I think it's because I've been pondering this for ages. I don't really know. I think it might be because it's not one person's job, although sometimes they do put somebody in charge of it, which is a joke. But it's not like, sales, we know people are doing that, and production, people are doing it, design, people are doing it. But customer service is sort of everyone who meets a customer. So I think for a start, it gets forgotten because it's not a department. And I also think people think it's common sense. It should be easy. And we know that selling is a bit of an art, and buying, negotiating. But customer service, we think, well, surely everyone does that. And I think it's kind of taken for granted. And I think that's why it gets neglected. But I actually think it's more important than anything else nowadays, because I think, quality is vital, but everybody's got their quality sorted. Otherwise, they're not even in the game. And, price is kind of important. Or is it, depending on what sector you're selling to? And I think, nowadays, well, if you think back to the 70s, for example, cars were totally unreliable. But now every car starts first. I'd be amazed if my car didn't start. So things like quality are just sorted. And I think now that the main competitive arena is customer service, actually. That's what people notice. If you say, what do you think of your car? They'll go, oh, God, the service is terrible. Or, oh, no, they're really good. They look after me when I go in there. And service is what people notice and what they talk about. If you talk about hotels, they don't really talk about how comfortable the bed is, or it's the service, isn't it? Particularly bad service. News spreads quickly. If you get bad
I think that if the bed is terrible, they will talk about the bed and the customer service.
Fine. They're always good enough.
There's a couple of things that you're bringing up that I want to sort of tease out. So in service orientation, I think, or service mastery as your course and your approach, I think is something that needs to come from the top. I think this is what you're saying, and needs to be part of the corporate culture, that when we see a customer or when we're, we take care of them, and when we're building something, as you point out, with
the come from the top, and usually doesn't. Yeah.
That you have to think about that customer and say, what would the customer want? Which features would they value? There's something separate, right? I know there's some people on this call and their titles are, head of customer care, head of customer success associate, call center manager, call center associate. Those people, their job is customer care. But it rarely, as in my experience, reports into the CEO. It's often kind of a function off to the side. Maybe it goes in through, an administrative function. Maybe it's a subset of engineering, or it's a subset of retail.
It's everywhere, isn't it? That's the difficult thing about it.
Well, yeah. And I'm wondering how, what are the metrics that, you teased metrics. What kind of metrics do you think are important? Well, I saw somebody put NPS.
Yeah, I want to say something about metrics. Or can I just say one more thing before we go on to metrics, though, which is that I think customer care is is what shows or doesn't show if people care or if they don't care. So, you know, all the motivation that management have to do about communicating and looking after people and giving them interesting work and all those things, if they get that right, people will feel loyal to the company and that will show when they talk to customers. And if they get it wrong, people will just turn up for the money and not care about their job. In fact, they're probably already looking for another job, and then they're not going to treat the customers well, and that's going to show. So customer care is almost the acid test of whether management are doing a good job motivating their employees. So to get people to give good customer care, you've got to do everything. You know, you've got to be a good boss, and the employees have got to feel important and valued. And so, you know, I think you've got to have a system, but you can't just have a checklist. You've got to have employees who care. And that's quite difficult. And the bigger the company, the harder that is to do, of course. So I think that's why this is such a fascinating subject, because it comes out of everything else that you do. But should we go on to measurement?
Yes.
Because, you know, there's qualitative and quantitative, isn't there? So you can say to people, how good do you think it was when you went to DoubleTree? Did you have a good experience? And you go, yeah, I think they were pretty good. And then you can measure things like how long it takes to answer the phone and how many people buy a second time. If you've got a SaaS product, you know, how long till they drop off on
retention.
average.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously hard measures are brilliant if you can get them. There's a lot of things quite difficult to measure. So I think response time is one of them. I mean, I reply to my emails the same day. So every day I have nothing in my inbox. And I just figure if I'm going to get 100 emails a day, I could leave 1,000 in my inbox and reply after 10 days. So in other words, every day 100 come in.
Right. Don't get behind. Don't get behind.
Yeah. I mean, and I think of that as eating wrinkly apples. So if I've got 10 apples in my fruit bowl and every day I buy one more apple, but then I eat the most wrinkly one, I'm always eating 10-day-old apples, aren't I? Which is not a good way to live. Whereas if I only had one apple or two in the fruit bowl, a new one would arrive and I'd eat it straight away and it'd be fresh. And it's the same with if you've got a queue of emails or a queue of phone calls, you know, you're answering the same number because you're keeping the queue the same length, but they're not happy by the time you deal with them. So it seems to me, deal with them straight away. And the number of people who reply to me saying, thanks for your quick reply. And I'm thinking, well, I replied within about 5 hours, but that's not that quick, is it? So it must be quicker than most people. So I think things like how quickly you reply, that's a measurable thing. There's one thing I wanted to talk about, though, which I've actually written on my little, I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I've written on here. Can you see those numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I bet half the people on this call know what those are. And it's Net Promoter Score. So what you do, and let me put, I don't like about it, which I want to see what people think. Well, so the idea is you get a score out of 10. Sorry,
NPS for the win. NPS for the win. I've had this on AJ. It's a great comment. NPS for the win. And now we're finally talking about it. Here we go.
Well, so you ask them, how good are you out of 10? And some people will say you're fantastic and give you 9 or 10. And some people will only give you 3 because they thought you were terrible. And then you just count how many and you subtract. So it's that number of people who love you minus the people who don't like you. And these are the neutrals in the middle. And that gives you one number that is, you know, are people recommending you? Because these are the people who promote you out there. And these are the people who de-promote you, whatever that word would be. And I think it's a good idea. But my beef with it, I've got 2 beefs with it, actually. And one of them is 8. Because in England, if you get 8 out of 10, you're brilliant. Like if you said to me,
cultural issue.
How good's your local fish and chip shop? I'd give them 8 because I want to keep a couple of points in reserve in case there's a better one ever.
Yep.
And I've noticed, particularly when I do training courses for engineers, if you ask them how good was it out of 5, they'll quite often give you 4. And if you say, well, what does that mean? They go, it's really good. Well, how would you change it? Oh, I can't think of anything I would change. Why didn't you give me 5? Oh, well, I can't, but you know, because there might be a better one next week. And salespeople give me 5. Engineers only give me 4.
Got it. Yep.
And so I think 8 these days, 8 is pretty good. I mean, if your supermarket is 8 out of 10. So I think the green bit should include 8 and maybe even 7. Now, you know, I think now I'd be pretty upset if I got rated 6 out of 10 for work I did, because I want to be better than that. But 6 is okay. I kind of think that the 7, 8, 9, and 10 are excellent. I think 6 is probably neutral. 5's probably neutral. I think
You're
people
an
who really
easy
dislike them.
grader. I think
Yeah,
you're an easy grader. I think that
I
the
think.
NPS team is,
I mean,
you know,
I want to get 10, but I just think that, and the thing is, it's so harsh because if you get a whole load of 8s, they count for nothing. They don't count half or a quarter. You get nothing if you get 8.
right. But
And
I think that that's fair. I'm just gonna, you know, that you know, somebody that gives an 8, somebody, the engineer that gives a 4 at the fish and chip shop, you
yeah,
know, they're not likely, at least the engineers, you know, they might not be that likely to recommend it. And that's what that number is. It's not just, are you satisfied? It's, are you willing to recommend it? That is the whole point of Net Promoter. Are you net going to promote it on your own behalf? Are
well,
you going
okay,
to,
yeah, I agree with that, but it's also used as a score of just how good
well,
are you?
that's,
How well are you doing?
yeah,
And I think
well,
it's, but the other part of this, which fits together, I think, is that a lot of people massage their score and say, look, if you like this, please give us 9 or 10,
that's
or
terrible.
or if you know, and
Who thinks that's terrible? I think that's
well, I
terrible.
do too. But but I know lots of people who do that because they say, look, we're measuring it. We want to know if you like it, if you like us. And you could argue it's okay to say, look, if you like us, don't give us 8 because that doesn't count. If you like us, give us 9 or 10. If you
Yeah.
don't like us, that's fine. Give us 2. But if you like us, give us 9 or 10. And because then people at least know how it
Yeah.
works.
But
So
I
I don't know.
think,
That's my
yeah,
worry. There's that bit of
that's,
mess there around 8 and 9. But apart from
yeah,
that, it's obviously it's great, you know, and
yeah,
I want to see, I really want bad organizations to be called out for it and numbered, and you know, British Airways, for example, who are
yeah.
living off their reputation, are completely useless. I hate them. I can't tell you how. And they cancelled my last flight, didn't even tell me.
Oh no,
Turned up at the airport.
my kids are flying British Air tomorrow.
Well, make sure the flight hasn't been cancelled is all I'm saying. And make sure they don't lose your baggage, and allow about 4 hours for checking in and another hour at the other end for getting your bags back
Oh
again.
my
I mean,
gosh. Oh my
but
gosh.
they are regarded as the top airline because they're living off their reputation from the past. But rapidly, people are starting to say, well, they've become lazy,
Yeah.
they've become complacent. So if
Yeah.
there was a net promoter score, a great big number about on their that they had to have on their website, or above their check-in desk saying we have a net promoter score of minus 30, or so, that
Right.
would be justice. I'd like that. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am a
Well,
big believer in the idea of measuring, and that's why I think TripAdvisor is great, because
right.
TripAdvisor,
Well,
it's not 100% reliable, but at
but
last,
it's,
if you have a bad experience, you can tell all the future people, this is what happened to me. And I like that justice.
yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I was just going to say that. I'm glad you brought up TripAdvisor, that, things are becoming much more transparent. So it's harder and harder for companies to hide behind their brand spend, like British Airways does. People know. People are making decisions based on what their friends tell them, and also through word of mouth. And that really is, I think, what the goal. If you're using Net Promoter System properly, that is,
Yes.
you're really supposed to be, it's for internal use. You're not supposed to brag about your score. You're supposed to say, oh man, nobody's giving us a number that indicates that they would recommend us to their friends. That's an issue. I know we're running out of time, but I hope you have like maybe 5 more minutes. Can
Oh,
we
I have,
continue?
yeah. Well, I wanted to tell
So,
you what my little diagram was as well, if I
oh, okay,
may.
go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
well, I mean, we've been talking about it already, but so I used to teach a diploma course in management, and it was lots of different subjects. And one of them was customer service. And I could set any assignment I liked. And I've only got one theory, which is this, which I'll tell you. And for fun one time, I said to them, I want you to go and do some research and write your assignment about your favorite customer care theory. But it can't be mine. You got to find another one and write about it. And after a few weeks, I got all these complaints because they said, we can't find any other theories. There are none. And I thought, that's incredible, because with management and motivation or sales, there are hundreds of theories out there. But customer service, there's just nothing. It's really odd. So the only theory I've ever found is this. And it basically says that there's the core of what you do in the middle. That's the core of what you do. So, and that might be anything from, uploading posts if you're Buffer, or flying people around the world if you're British Airways, or whatever. And the core is assumed to be fine. When I go to a doctor, I assume he or she is qualified. Or if I go to a hotel, I sort of assume that it's hygienic and properly run. Probably a bad assumption, but I do. And around the core, you've got customer service, 2 types of customer service. You've got the expected. the basics. So I expect there to be toilet paper, and if there isn't, I'll be unhappy. So they can only lose, and people will leave if they don't get that right. And bad news spreads quickly. So you've got the core, you've got the expected, and here you've got the unexpected, the delight factor. So this is where there's a chocolate on my pillow, and then when I go out and come back, there's another chocolate, and you think, whoa, that's good. Or the cookie on the desk or whatever. And the unexpected, I think, is what makes people recommend. So the unexpected, people go off and they say to their friends, you should go there. You should go to DoubleTree because you get a cookie when you're. And so I think the two are quite different, because I think for the expected bit, you need to have systems and make sure that everything's always spot on. The unexpected bit is where it gets really interesting, because that's where you have to be creative. And you've got to think of things that they're not going to expect. A project management wrap, didn't expect that, or whatever. And he's the guy with the wrap, and that's the hotel with the whatever. And so they've got loads of cats you can stroke in the waiting room of the doctor, or whatever it might be. So there's a sort of creativity element to the unexpected, which is, there's no formula for that. And the course I put on LinkedIn, I just had 30 ideas of how you could be better than your competitors, 30 ways to think about how you could delight. But there's no one formula. And I think that's why it's so interesting and so difficult. And a lot of companies, of course, they don't put any management effort even into the basics, let alone into the creative bit. And what they should be is constantly saying to the staff, how can we be brilliant? And what can we do that's really good? And they should reward people who come up with ideas, and they should have a whole process for that. And most companies never even think about that delight side of things, which is so key. So I think there's two halves to customer service. You don't want to lose people, and you want to get recommendations. And of course, that's the net promoter score right there, isn't it? Because these are the people who didn't get the basics. And then these are the people who've been delighted somehow.
And that's great.
That's the only theory I've ever seen of customer service, incredibly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, the net promoter system is sort of, I think, related to that as well. But I love how you think about it. You got the basics, and then, how can you delight, and the idea of bringing in people's own ideas and creativity. And I think the most important thing is that your list of 100 ways to fail is going to be different than other people's 100 ways to fail. And your ways of delighting are going to be different. And the important thing is, to understand what makes the difference between your customers coming back and them not coming back, and the way that they feel about you. And I think the second thing, which, I think is also important for measuring, is what are the early indicators that someone is or isn't going to give you a good review, going to come back, going to buy more.
If you're looking,
and I think it's recency. This is from the Economist: recency, frequency, and depth and breadth of usage. So when was the last time they came to you? How often do they come to you? When they come to you, what do they do? Do they do a lot of things? Do they spend time? Are you their number one priority?
I like that. Yeah, that's good.
And if you track some of those things, like, oh, people used to come to my hotel twice a year, now they're coming once a year. People used to take, last year they took 15 flights, round trips, and this year we're halfway through the year and they've only taken one. I'm guessing they're going somewhere else. That's a good time for a proactive outreach, right? To figure out what went wrong, and how do we fix it? How do we get them back?
Surveying your customers is an easy thing to do, which a lot of people don't. I mean, some places they just give you a little card and it just says, we hope everything was good. How could we be even better? And you could just write on it and stick it in the post, or there's a little box or whatever. And just to even ask that question makes you feel valued, even if you don't even answer it. And quite often there's some little thing that has annoyed you, or these ice in the car park or something like that. And so just asking your customers, how could we be even better? What was the most important thing to you, and how good were we at it, is a good question. I think the other thing is, it's really important to know your customers and what do they want. Do they want a quick check-in, or do they want a cuddly check-in of somebody who's going to chat and be really nice?
Exactly.
Do they want someone to carry their bags? I don't want someone to carry my bag. I don't like it when someone carries my bag all the way up to the room, and then do I give them a tip or not, and how much? It's a bit weird. They come into the room with me, and I don't want somebody else in my hotel room. And so, so what do people want, and what sort of people are they? And you can guess, or you can ask them.
You can ask, and asking is so good. And
Yeah.
And I think your point about, we kind of, and I feel like we should wrap up, but at the same time, I'm noticing that more and more people are joining us. So
I've got 5 more
wrap
minutes
up.
if you have.
We were supposed to wrap up 10 minutes ago, but let's thank you for that. Let's go 5 more minutes. Your point at the beginning about professionalism versus quirkiness. And if I come into the hotel at 10 o'clock at night and I'm exhausted and I just want to take my one tiny little bag, go up to my room and Netflix and chill, and this person is, chatting up a storm and trying to grab my bag and wanting to be into the room, right? First of all, they're not being professional. They're not saying to themselves. And I think if you remember one thing from this, it's just the main job of customer care is to make sure that the customer is getting the value that they came for, that they're entitled to, and that they recognize that they're getting it, that they see
what would you want if it was you? Because we've
in a
mostly
hotel?
all been in that. Yeah. I mean, if you're behind the desk, just imagine being a customer.
Oh, right. Oh, I thought you were asking me about my personal
what
hotel bellman preferences.
I think you already said you're like me. You just want to crawl up to your room and watch Netflix, don't you? I checked into a recent hotel. I'd been driving for several hours and I'd been swigging some juice. It was like blueberry and blackcurrant smoothie.
Oh, no.
I'm not sure if that's legal or not, actually. But anyway, we're safe to do so. I'd been swigging juice. And I went in, I checked in, and the woman was just didn't really even pay me any attention. And when I got up to my room, I found I had a little black circle on the front of my face, on my mouth, where I'd been swigging from this bottle, and I'd been checking in and everything with this circle.
And nobody said a word.
No, didn't say a word. Well, it's probably good to not say anything. At least she didn't laugh. But that wasn't her fault. But it's just something I remembered from when I checked
maybe
in.
on your way in, it's okay because you're going up to your room and the mirror. Probably, if you were going out to give a speaking engagement,
she should definitely tell me.
A mitzvah. It would have been a very good deed.
And some of them have a little hook on the desk where you can hang your shirt when you then have to put everything down and write and fill in the form.
Okay,
and
wait,
so there are so many details, aren't there, of things that they could think about if they made the effort.
Absolutely. Okay, let's close out with this great question from Kate Ladon. Talking about this, I think she's referring to the, do you want a Netflix and chill or do you want a chatty person who
sometimes I love a chat. Yeah. Well,
what do you think?
I think you can pick it up. You can tell if somebody's chatty. If they say to me, "How was your journey?" I just say it was all right. And if I go, "It was all right," and you just give me my keys. But if I go, "Well, actually, it was quite good," then they should be chatty. Because sometimes I feel reasonably chatty,
read the signals.
And they don't chat at all, and they just stare at me, and I think, well, sorry to be disturbing you. And sometimes they're even reading something down, but they've got their own. They're looking at this, and they're like, "What? Oh, you want keys? Oh, here's your keys." They don't even look at me as they give me the keys. So, but I think you should be able to read the other person just like you do in any other social situation. But think of them as important. And one of my rules is, what if they were the queen or the king or the president? Then you'd be looking them in the eye and saying, "Great to have you here." You'd have the form ready as they come in through the door, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just go, "Sorry, what's your name again? Here's your keys." What if they were sort of Bruce Springsteen or Taylor Swift or somebody? And you should treat every customer as if they're really, really important. And then it becomes easy. Then you'd know whether they wanted to chat or not. If Bruce was chatty, you'd chat. But if he wasn't, you wouldn't sort of chat when he's obviously itching to move on, would you? So I think if you make the effort, it's easy, but you have to care. That's the thing.
Right. So I think what you're saying is, number one, read the signals. If all else fails, ask and put yourself in their shoes and try to do what you think you might enjoy in a similar circumstance.
Definitely.
Not that hard.
Nailed. I think that, and it's not hard, but the staff have to care. But I really think in the end, it's all about management. So if that person on the desk is a bit rude, it's actually management's fault because they've employed maybe not a good person, or they've employed a good person who has not been motivated or not been properly trained, or they've maybe never even said to them, "Look, customer care is important. You're the face of this whole organization. So you're actually really important." They've maybe never been told. They've just said, when they turn up, give them their key. And that's probably the training they've had. So I think it all comes back to management in the end. So I'm not saying you can be rude to a customer and go, "Oh, that was my boss's fault." But I think, in an organization, management have to think about customer service and how are they going to get their staff to do it really well. And management have to keep bringing it up as a subject all the time, because otherwise it just gets forgotten in the noise of everything else. And it's so important.
It's so important. Okay, so I could talk to you obviously all day. You're
Yeah, we
fascinating,
probably should finish.
delightful, and you have a lot of charm. And I'd love to see your dog. But
Yeah.
you know, before I say goodbye, how can people find you if they want more Chris Croft? I
Oh,
know Nat's going to put
incredibly
the
easy. Just put Chris Croft into Google. It's all chriscroft.com is my website, and I've got a blog there where I put the things I really want to put. So you have a look at my blog; it's full of stuff. And LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. Just put Chris Croft into LinkedIn, and there's a picture of me all smiley on there. I've recently changed it to a smiling picture because you should.
we love that one.
So
Definitely a
yeah,
better picture.
LinkedIn and yeah, do follow me on LinkedIn and ask me questions and stuff. I love it. I reply to everything, every comment on LinkedIn I reply to. So it's always good. Yeah, I'll see you on there, everybody.
Yeah. So follow Chris. We put the one of his courses up for free. So if you click on that, you get it for the next for the 24 hours from the time you click on it. You can access his course on Service Mastery. You can access my course
Get
on
some
service
popcorn
orientation.
Get some popcorn, and binge for 24 whole hours because then it's gone.
Yeah,
but it's really good to get it all for free, though, isn't it? I mean, that's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So check out his course and follow, and tune back in January for the next episode of LinkedIn Office Hours.
Thank you for having me, Robbie. Thank you for inviting me. It's been really fun.
It's been such a pleasure. Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you.